Welcome to Beyond the Beat, your go-to source for insider knowledge on fantasy football. Hosted by Zach Hiduk and Matt Olson. We bring you straight to the action with exclusive interviews from NFL beat writers, draft experts, and film gurus. Get the news from the field, straight from the sources at training camp and beyond. This is where fantasy wins are made.
Welcome in, everyone, to Beyond the Beat with 32 beat writers. My name is Zach Hiduk, and today I have with me my partner in crime, or I suppose whatever, I don't know, Matt Olson. Matt, how are you doing today, man?
Doing well. Happy to be here.
Yeah,
Always.
I just say, are you happy to be here? I don't know if you have anybody going on in tonight's game. We're currently recording on Thursday. You got anybody going right now in the first week of playoffs?
Yeah, unfortunately, from the start of this game, it's not looking great. But I have Debo, Puka, and Kyron all currently participating.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a little bit more Blake Corum than you'd like. We're only at the end of the first quarter here for anybody who's cares about any of that stuff.
That happened last week, though. Like, Corum
Yeah.
played early and then didn't.
Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, he popped the ball up in the air and almost had a pick. So we will see how that continues to go. But yeah, starting 3 players with 3 points scored through the first quarter. We'll have to see. I know that Vegas was expecting some high scores here. And if you want to, by the way, you can check out our NFL implied totals, our Week 15 NFL implied totals, and weekly, as a matter of fact, throughout the season, through the rest of the season here at tools.32beatwriters.com. And we have Vegas tools. You just click that drop down and you can see all that information right there, which is pretty cool. We dropped that all free to you to view. You can also see our 2025 draft tracker and our Week 15 love-hate, which we will get into here momentarily, as well as our rankings, all powered by Vegas odds, and some projections from our professionals over here at 32. One thing I did want to dig into after that pop there. And the reason I was mentioning that is because the 49ers and Rams have a relatively high over-under 1, 2, 3, the second highest on the week. So 48.5. Right now, we are a far cry from that, but we'll have to see how the rest of the game plays out. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell informed that they have begun planning what an 18-game schedule would look like. According to Jonathan Jones, we retweeted that. If you've been paying attention, you know that this has probably been coming for a while, and you'd have to be living under a rock, I would anticipate, for you to not know that. But I'm curious, Matt, if you have any initial thoughts on what maybe you think the impacts of fantasy are for that. We don't have to talk about this very long, but it happened, so I figured I'd mention it.
No, it's interesting. The only thing that I think it impacts fantasy, and I know I deal with it in a couple of leagues I play, is, even with the 14 or the 17 game schedule, right? You have a 14 team league. You have to play someone twice. So now you're going to have to play someone, again, another team twice. So it's about how do you make that fair? How do you come up with who plays who? And, I'm curious to see how that all plays out, because it definitely makes for some interesting scheduling and can ruin a lot of people's seasons.
Yeah, there's going to be additional bye weeks, so that will be interesting. I'm sure they'll have a secondary bye week. I can't imagine that the NFLPA collectively bargains this without negotiating that. I don't know what year it could actually kick in, because I don't know if they're able to tear up the current CBA. And I know that there's a stipulation in there that it can't happen until the end of that. So I don't know. We'll have to wait for more information. Basically, if the NFL announces that, or if ROG comes out and says, hey, we're looking at what this would look like, then it's already done. It's just not in writing, and they don't have all the things sorted out here. As Juwan Jennings catches a ball along the sideline there, but a flag's out. We'll have to see how that goes. That guy going off. Too bad he didn't start him, right?
Tennessee, baby.
Yeah. But anyways, we'll have to plan for that. And like you mentioned, I play in the leagues typically without divisions. So I don't know. Maybe that's not too big of a deal, but it could be depending on how your dynasty leagues are weighted, and that may or not be fun. All right, let's go ahead and get into some news.
You're Bailey. Yes. Who you want me? Right there.
Okay.
Where's Russo?
Bits from the beat.
All right, let's dig into some of the information that we had from the Bengals this week. Main question here is, rocking into 2025, do they keep Tee Higgins? We had quotes from both Burrow and Jamar Chase about wanting to keep him around and whether or not he deserves to be there. T's been injured on and off, currently on the franchise tag for, I believe, around $21 million. What do you make of that whole situation, Matt?
I mean, I get it. If you're Burrow, why would you want to lose Tee Higgins, right? Like, you have to. You almost put your franchise in a tough spot by coming out and saying what he said. We were talking obviously before we dove in here, and it's going to make for a sticky cap situation. I mean, you have to sacrifice somewhere. We talked about Jamon needing to get paid eventually, and just these numbers are going to be ungodly. To keep let's call him a 1B wide receiver in Higgins, but a 1A in Chase. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, when we were going over the numbers a little bit, I was like, I actually don't know how they make this happen. I mean, their defense is borderline, if not entirely historically bad. Like, they have lost so many games because of that defense. And as everybody knows, like, they've scored the most, 30 some odd point games with a loss compared to like the rest of the NFL. It's like, I don't know if it's like scoring more than 35 points in a game and still losing. It's like, I forget how exactly all of it, but it's ridiculous. The defense sucks. So they need to spend some money on some draft capital over there. And the Bengals in general just are not a type of franchise that tends to spend up on everybody. The family notoriously is not one of the richer families, similar to like the Raiders, if you think about them. Not that they can't afford to pay everybody, but and everybody who owns an NFL team is rich, but all this stuff has to be escrowed when you not every bit, but any of the guaranteed money has to be paid up front. So you have to have that cash in order to do that, right? So looking at the actual numbers, the Bengals have about $60 million in cap space next year. Chase is going to be paid $21 million on the 5th-year option. Of course, they're going to have to extend him as well. That'll apply at the end of that deal. And then, what are you going to do? CeeDee Lamb got paid $35 million this year, right? A year, roughly, somewhere in that range. Are you going to pay Tee Higgins $30 million a year? Is he going to be willing to sign anything less than a 2, 3, 4-year contract? I don't like, if you're Tee Higgins, what are the Bengals going to be able to offer you that somebody else isn't? And like, money talks. I know playing with Joe Burrow is great, but you're not guaranteed a third contract if you're him. And so you're going to pay Jamar Chase $36 million in 2026, maybe more. And then you're going to pay Tee Higgins 30, 32, whatever it is. I can't imagine. Maybe he takes more of like a Calvin Ridley deal or something like that, but I don't see why he would necessarily, unless teams just aren't willing to pay him. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but both the Bengals have to be able and willing to do it, not even just from a cap space perspective, but from a liquid cash perspective. And they have to, like, Tee Higgins has to feel like a reason to be able to do it. So I don't know. I'm skeptical.
No, I agree. I don't think it's logical if you're the Bengals.
Yeah. So we'll have to see how that goes. Maybe I am just a Patriots fan who wants him to sign with us, although I think, of course, everybody does at this point in time. Looking at Las Vegas, here's a gross situation. Who in the world is going to be starting? Yeah. Sincere McCormick or whoever the heck else is on that team, Alexander Madison, or does it matter?
I mean, I remember, like, what was it? Probably 2 weeks ago, me and you were chatting about McCormick, and you were probably making fun of me. And it was funny. Right after that, I literally said, I'm going on to Twitter and I'm finding some quote in some article, and I'm getting this guy's name out there. And went ahead and posted it. Obviously people saw it. And I hope some people took the chance on him. I think that his first like true game he started, he put up around 75 yards, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, against Kansas City, he had a 38% snap share. This is all from Player Profiler. You can find them, by the way. Very helpful partner of ours. A 38% snap share, 12 carries, and had 65 yards, total yards. He had 89 total yards this last week against Tampa, 63% snap share, almost 64 on 15 carries with 5 in the red zone, which is quite a lot. Shocked, honestly,
awesome.
We're in the red zone that often. So, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely eating my words. I think last week I said find anybody else. If you're starting Sincere McCormick, you're absolutely screwed. And, hey, you at least got 10 points from him in your league formatting. So, that's not too bad.
He's average.
Go ahead.
You completely broke up there. I was saying he's averaging 5.5 yards per carry. I mean, you can't get mad about that. Kind of off the topic of McCormick, but I think this speaks volumes to where Dylan Lobby is in his NFL career, or maybe lack thereof NFL career. I think we all had high hopes for him. I remember, the whole Senior Bowl and just, you coming back and saying like, wow, what a great kid. Hustling, working hard, doing all the right stuff. It's not translating. I mean, we're seeing a undrafted, kid come up who was injured last year, come up and completely leapfrog him in the pecking order. Like, it's just not what you want to see. It's very scary if you're a Dylan owner in fantasy or in Dynasty, I should say.
Yeah, which obviously I think we all had not insanely high expectations for a kid coming out of New Hampshire.
Sure.
But what we were hoping for is a role in that passing game, because that was really his specialty, right? He's played 6 games, technically. He's had a single rushing attempt, no receptions. He's literally not involved. And it's a little bit, it's definitely disappointing. Obviously, you expected more from him. With the opportunity that's there, you would have expected that. I mean, he's not a super big guy, 5'10", 206. But at the same time, do we really trust that coaching staff to make the right decision? I don't know. But that being considered, this coaching staff isn't going to be around next year. And so, unfortunately, I feel like you could probably kiss that hope goodbye. But yeah, no, a great interview. Good, awesome to see him at least get in the NFL there. But this year, I think we'll get some interesting talent from the Senior Bowl. And he was not the only guy there, of course. We've had a lot of success from there, but he was kind of one of everybody's favorites if you were paying attention to some of the one-on-ones and stuff like that. So, let's see. Paul Gutierrez, by the way, on this whole situation with the Raiders, reporting that Raiders coach Antonio Pierce said regarding running back Alexander Madison, I would assume this week he will probably be active, but he also said that Sincere McCormick would remain running back number 1 should Madison return. Quote, he's run his tail off. So looks like Sincere McCormick has made a spot for himself regardless of the veteran in the backfield behind him. Matt, if you don't have anything more real quick, I'm going to go ahead and play a clip from a sponsor.
Oh, incredible news about Fast Draft. Fast Draft DFS is live. It's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. You just draft 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends for the Sunday slate. You like Jahmyr Gibbs? You like Jackson Smith and Jigba? You like Tyrone Tracy? Draft him. And the beauty is you can just order 5 teams, submit your rankings, and Fast Draft will email you the results. We awarded $1,000 in prizes our first week, and we're just going up from there. Soon there's going to be a select 6. No drafting at all. You just pick any 6 guys. Our DFS mantra, just say no to salaries on Fast Draft. Don't forget there's free tools on Fast Draft too. You want to get ready for startup season? We've created the best Dynasty mock draft experience there is. And if you want to play in these DFS contests and our best ball contest for 2025 are coming very soon too, just use promo code PODFATHER when you deposit and you get a free draft. It's that easy. And you're like, oh, I already have Fast Draft. Great. Refer a friend. Have them put your username in as the promo code, and then you and your friend will both get an instant deposit match up to $25. We got DFS. We got Dynasty Mocks. We got Best Ball. It's all there for you on fastdraft.app. Check it out. And the promo code is PODFATHER.
All right, thanks to Player Profiler and Fast Track for sponsoring this episode. Moving on to Miami. What is going on down there with the Dolphins in the fish tank?
Same thing that's been going on for quite a few weeks now. Their
Reeks
backfield
is
stinks.
Also
Reeks
yeah.
is also
Okay.
accurate.
Yeah.
The backfield reeks. It's been hard to watch the run game here, in Miami. And we've kind of heard the same thing over and over that, we're going to work on it this week. We're going to work on it this week. And we've actually, hearing that again this week. Frank Smith basically came out and said that, most of the issues were that they aren't executing, and that they have to be better and they have to prepare better. He claims once again they're going to make this a focus, and just the eye test isn't strong when you're watching these guys, especially in short yardage situations. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, there was a scenario with Achane, and correct me if I'm wrong here. He had 2 rushes on third and ones. One went for -1 yards, one went for -3 yards, and one of those was on the goal line. You have to convert that. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, I think we did see him run one in this last week, if I remember correctly as well. I should just pull the game log up, I suppose. But yeah, he did have a score. I believe that was a touchdown scored by being on the ground. But yeah, I mean, in general, we knew this about Achane, that his success was not going to come between the tackles. I would love to dig a little bit more into the inside outside efficiency, but his game is, I mean, and you saw it when Tua was out. Obviously, it impacted everybody, but part of the reason that is because he is so efficient in the screen game and things of that nature. Like when you talk about Achane as a receiver, it's a lot of those design touches, whether that be on some sort of I don't want to say a tunnel screen, but more creative things than just a running back slip screen or something like that, right? So, we see that a lot with him, and anything that is not that is tough sledding. And so, yeah, part of their success going forward, obviously they've struggled in a lot of other areas in recent weeks, particularly prior to the last 2 weeks. But yeah, I'm interested to see next year what they maybe do in that running back room. Because Mostert, he's old as dirt. Jeff Wilson is always hurt, and Achane he's too small to be the only guy. So I'll be interested to see. Jalen Wright is obviously there, what they continue to do there as well. Speed, size. Yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts on that?
I just think, Alan Popart brought this up, and I guess this might have been a quote from one of, Smith's, conferences or whatever after a practice. He said that the Dolphins have considered using Wilson in those, short yardage goal line scenarios, which going into the fantasy football playoffs, that's the absolute last thing I want to hear as an Achane manager. That is a scary, scary quote. And I think he does go on to say that he's not buying the idea that Achane isn't physically equipped to be able to handle short yardage situations. But to your point, you could be the guy. You could be the guy and not be the guy. And it seems like that could, where there's smoke, there's fire, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, I don't think that means Achane, I'm not panicking. I will say part of the reason I'm not panicking is because in the one league that I do have him, our 32 Beat Writers Invitational League, by the way, the Dolphins screwed me, man. I went 7-7. 3 teams went 7-7. One guy on our squad here at 32, Max, went 7-7. A listener went 7-7, and I went 7-7. And I missed the playoffs by a total of 9 points scored. So if the Dolphins just would have figured themselves out, I'm not going to take any responsibility here, for sure. Then I'd be in the playoffs there. But yeah, so Achane is going to hopefully just win me a toilet bowl. But if you have him and you're relying on him, I don't love a quote like that. If they're saying that it's an option, and the fact that Like, if it wasn't any concern at all, then he wouldn't be saying something like, I'm not buying into the idea that he isn't physically equipped for the job. Like, you would come out and say, that's a dumb question. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't really address it in that way, in my opinion. So there's got to be some question about that. Let's move on to the Packers. What is up with Jayden Reed, man?
I mean, he's hurt a lot of people over the last few weeks. But I think at least we've gotten some, not clarity, but at least some reasoning from LaFleur on what exactly is happening. Wendell Ferrer of A to Z Sports, still made a good point. Reed's still leading the Packers in targets, reception, receiving yards, and explosive receptions this year. Like, that counts for something, right? Why wouldn't you want to get the guy involved more that's doing all those things? And LaFleur even went on to say that, they drew up plays for Reed early in last week's game. It's just those plays either ended in a sack, a penalty, or just Reed being covered and someone else getting the ball. So, you almost want to believe it's chance. Again, LaFleur goes on to say, that Green Bay had to go to 12 personnel because, the Lions were playing out and they needed more physicalness on the field, which ended up pulling Reed off the field. And that's why, he didn't get the opportunity. And then some other encouraging news is that he talked about him being played out wide more. Reed, traditionally plays in the slot. He's only been out wide about 24% of snaps this year. But hey, if he gets out wide and gets out of the slot, that gives him more options to be on the field, especially, when you do go to those two wide receiver sets.
Yeah, and it's interesting at wide receiver here. I was just pulling up. Let's take a look. Green Bay Packers have one of the worst, 25th, in terms of strength of schedule for the rest of the season here for wide receivers. So, whether or not that plays into your decision, I'd have to look at their actual schedule here. Who do they got coming up? I should know this. Fill the dead space. We're professionals here. Load, please. Why can't I? There we are. We got the Seahawks, Saints, and Vikings then for your playoffs. Yeah. I mean, are you satisfied with the occasional boom game and then the just complete disappearing? Obviously, in a lot of metrics, as you mentioned, he's super efficient and but he's just not been on the field enough in certain sets. And over the course of the year, I'd love to chart this, but it feels like it's gone down. I mean, over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks or so, 54% snap share, 61, 67, 57, 47, 66, 51. Prior to that, at the beginning of the year, 70, 55, 57, 77, 78. So it's almost like we've seen his usage rates go down to a degree, despite the fact that, we've seen 33 fantasy points, 27, and then over the last couple, it's been a little bit rough.
I mean, it almost kind of reminds you of Christian Watson, right? A couple years ago, the efficiency is just insane for what he's doing. But I think, LaFleur is at least realizing that, and you have to hope going into the fantasy playoffs that, everything we just reviewed is going to be true. There's probably a majority of teams that have Jayden Reed on them are probably starting him this week. I think that's fair to say. I don't know how many people. I mean, maybe there are teams out there that are just so deep, but that you don't need him, and you can plug someone else in. But I have to imagine most people that he helped get to this point, are going to continue to play him, and so this does bode well for that.
Yeah, and I will say, we kind of skipped over it a little bit. I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that their guy, why can I not? Josh Jacobs has just been so productive. It's almost, not that the passing game has been unnecessary, but really that offense has been it's everything else is kind of played into the whole, Josh Jacobs being great type of thing. So,
sure.
I don't know if we'll ever see a dominant wide receiver in Green Bay because Matt LaFleur is such a great offensive coordinator. Maybe he doesn't need that, and Jordan Love is good enough, and you just don't see anybody who's truly dominant there unless maybe they draft somebody. Christian Watson, I believe, is a free agent this year. There's going to be teams out there that want him. Be a little surprised if they sign him again, but of course, I don't know. I'll have to tap our guy Andy Herman for that in the offseason. Yeah, I feel like he hasn't done quite enough for them in order to do that, but we'll have to see. So, let's move on to Minnesota. Where do you think Sam Darnold's going to be playing next year?
I mean, personally, I think, and I'd like to see him stay with the Vikings. I get that McCarthy got drafted, blah, blah, blah. Great. I'm going to slightly pat myself on the back here. But, when we were looking at, camp and that time of year and hell, even before that, even the draft, like I said, whoever goes into Minnesota is probably in the best setup to succeed in the NFL between O'Connell, between what their receiving options, all of that. And, at the time, we know like JJ was going to be the guy. And, Sam Darnold comes in and just has the best year of his 7-year career, which I feel like he's been in the league for 15 years. So, people forget just how young this guy is. So obviously he's put up career numbers in every single category. And if you're the Vikings and you're Kevin O'Connell, I don't know how you let this guy walk, unless someone comes in with just a tremendous offer. That's the only reason I think you have to let him go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's obviously free agent after this deal, and I would, they're not going to tag him or something like that. That would be pretty wild. I don't actually know if they're allowed to do that or not, now that I think about it. But with JJ, like, I will say I didn't have a ton of confidence in him coming into that situation. But now, after you've seen, what they've been able to do with a guy who was a literal cast off and a mockery in the NFL for the most part, I wonder if they just feel like, hey, you know what? If he's able to do this with a guy who was leading one of the worst offenses in the history of the NFL 5 years ago with the Jets, like, how can he not be successful here with McCarthy? So that would be the only thing I'm curious about. I'm sure O'Connell feels fairly confident in his own abilities there, but
sure,
the chances are, I believe we saw a cleanup surgery, correct me if I'm wrong, with JJ McCarthy needing to be done maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, somewhere around there. If that's the case, there's a possibility at least that maybe he's not ready to go to start the season. So they're going to probably sign somebody. And I don't know that Darnold is going to be the type of guy that wants to basically sign the same type of contract that he did the first time. Certainly not for the money. Like, he has made a lot more money. I'd be surprised if he gets like a 4 or 5 year deal. I would assume he's getting somewhere around like a 2 or 3. Your dog, I think, agrees with me on that. So
he's very angry now.
I think we're gonna leave that where it is. He must see another rabbit out there or something like
I don't know.
Yeah. We didn't. I don't think we told that story on the podcast about your dog getting into that whole situation.
I mean, he's a mess.
Is that the same one?
Same one. Yeah. Zach's alluding to the fact that my dog decided to eat a rabbit about a month ago, and we got to deal with the consequences of him not being able to digest it fully. Yeah. Unfortunate to say the least.
Yeah, dogs always do what's best for. I don't know. You weren't even sure if it was alive when he quote unquote caught it, though, right? So I don't know. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. He's not just out there murdering bunnies. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that doesn't. Yeah. Anyways, dogs do some things whether or not that's the best thing to do. My brother's dog is a coonhound, and they live in the middle of nowhere, northern Pennsylvania, right? And he got into a porcupine like 2 or 3 different times. And you're like, dude, how do you not learn that this is not a digestible? Like, obviously, the dog lost that every single time. It was not fun pulling little needles out of that guy's gum. So
no porcupines in Nashville proper.
It's good to not have to worry about that, I suppose. So I don't know. We'll see what Darnold. Getting back to the Vikings, we'll see.
Sure.
With that, then I'm glad for him, but yeah, I don't know, man. I honestly have no idea what happens with him, so we'll have to see.
For sure.
Moving on to Jacksonville, last team we'll touch on real quick before we hit the love-hate for the week and blast through that real quick. The only player we feel good about is
Brian Thomas. I mean, kid's a stud, right?
Yeah, I agree. What else, is he supposed to do other than put up stats with the previous first rounder Mac Jones?
I didn't know what adjectives you were going to use there. I was like,
I was fishing around like, how nice or mean do I want to be here? But yeah, this week we got Brian Thomas ranked at number 25. If you go and look at our Vegas rankings at tools.32beatwriters.com, I'm a company man. He is +1 over ECR right now, so we've got him about the same spot. But projected points 11.1, not a bad flex option for you there against the Jets.
Not at all. I mean, I think what was really cool the other day is Demetrius Harvey of Jacksonville.com posted up on Twitter, which I'm sure now has been blasted out everywhere at this point. But, Mac Jones basically said that, Thomas demands the ball. And then Thomas goes on to say, I'm always open. And with a a nice big smile. And, they're just, if Mac Jones needs any help he can get, let's put it that way. And, they are forming as much of a connection as one can expect in that scenario. But I mean, last week, Thomas Jr. saw 11 targets. Like, you can't get mad at that from a fantasy standpoint. That's in theory elite level. So I think, the run game's a mess there. You don't know if you can trust Bigsby. You don't know if you can trust Etienne. You don't know what's going on at Q. Well, we know we can't trust Mac Jones. But we can trust Brian Thomas Jr.
I wouldn't go as strong as this. Who's somebody we can't trust? I'm not going to say that. But I do want to say it's interesting, and I wonder what the story is behind this. I feel like it's kind of been swept under the rug. But remember before the Detroit game with Jacksonville, there was just all this smoke from the national reporters saying that, Shefty and Ian, that it's a very real possibility that if Jacksonville drops this game to Detroit, that Doug Peterson won't have a job the next day. And then they get 52 smash, they just get hammered. And then nothing happens. And then the bye week happens. And then they lose to the Texans. And then they squeak out a win 10-6 to the freaking Titans. And somehow it's just, okay, I guess he's going through the end of the season. I don't know. A lot of people wanted the Bears to do that. It doesn't really matter, but I'm just putting it out there,
It is weird. If you're Doug Peterson, you're almost like, can we just get this over with? Whether that's, to your point, whether that's the game, the week, the season. He knows he's not going to be back. If he is back, it would be probably the most shocking news of the NFL offseason. I think a lot of people think Doug Peterson's a good coach, or a competent coach. He's just not able to do it, and something's going on in Jacksonville that's beyond him.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what they can do to repair things next year. Trevor Lawrence just in general hasn't been living up to the hype. You would hope that they'd grab somebody like Ben Johnson or somebody like that, but it seems as though at this point in time, at least, the Bears are kind of in the front running for that. I believe we had some reporting on that today. Obviously, they're not doing interviews or anything, but there was some news that wasn't news and more speculation and observations kind of based on that today. So we'll have to see where that goes, but would not be surprised. And if I was him, I'd probably prefer Chicago as well. Bigger market, more recent QB1 on a rookie deal. So that's where I'd go as well.
No, I agree.
Yeah. All right, let's get into our love hate. Again, you can find this on our website, tools. And I keep plugging that, but it's honestly been great. By the way, we rolled this out a couple weeks ago, and shout out to our dev who continues to remain anonymous at this point in time per his own request. But shout out to
it's like the Wizard of Oz.
Shout out to the guy behind the curtain there on that, doing a lot of great work for us. But we just updated the 2025 draft tracker as well. You can find that. I'll say that we improved the user interface. We got draft order by record now, as well as points scored. We added a round 2 to the mock drafts that you can look at, 14-team league support, and also recent league memory. So we got a lot of that stuff in there, which is cool. You can take your sleeper ID and you can plug that in there and see a whole lot of fun and cool stuff there. But to get on to our love-hate, which we are looking at, let's get on to who we love. We love this week Geno Smith. And if you were listening last week, you would have heard this name then as well. And you'd say, Zach, Matt, you guys lied to me. He was not great last week. And my counter to that is he was great last week. He just wasn't needed. And Zach Charbonnet went off. And this week we have him ranked number 14. So just outside of QB1 territory there, with expert consensus rankings holding him at 23.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with Geno. Like we pulled his numbers before we did this. We looked at him like he would have, if they ran the ball 10 less times, he would have hit his ranking easily. If that was a closer scenario, and I mean, good for Charbonnet. That was an incredible game for him. So much that there's controversy, which is always fun. Again, in the fantasy playoffs, but I like Geno Smith here. I was higher on him before I saw this. It just kind of reassures me that he's doing the right things, and I think he's back to where he was last season, where the start of the year wasn't great for Geno, and he's certainly settled in again, and I think he's going to make a good push for the end of the year.
Yeah, I think this week I have a decision between Geno Smith versus Green Bay and Drake May against Arizona. We have both of them actually higher than expert consensus. We've got May at 17 and Geno at 14. So obviously I'll probably go with our rankings there, but it is an interesting decision for me this week with him, and I'll probably just go with what we've got. Alvin Kamara, we also love, ranked 5th with an ECR of 12, so we have him 7 spots ahead. He still remains out of practice with an illness. We've got Jake Haener being announced as the starter there for the Saints. What do you make of that situation?
Checkdowns, baby. That's, in all honesty, that's built in, right? Like, we know that Alvin Kamara can be a QB's best friend. Those, again, checkdowns, those short routes, those wheel routes. I mean, that's Alvin's bread and butter, right? And if you're a QB and you just need to move the sticks, what's better than dumping it down to Alvin Kamara? Obviously, we have to monitor this. He was out again today with an illness. We don't know what that illness is. He could have the sniffles, maybe you can help him out with, but in that same breath, it's just something to monitor. It'd be nice if there was some clarity. Tomorrow's Friday, or as you're watching this, it's Friday. Definitely something to keep an eye on going into the weekend.
Yep, check our feed for that at 32 Beat Writers if you were not already aware. Moving on to our next love for the running backs, it is Rico Dowdle. We have him ranked number 10 through our Vegas rankings with an ECR of 16. So we've got him 6 spots ahead and at the back end of running back 1.
I mean, refreshing, right? To see a Dallas running back actually finally doing something.
Yeah.
I mean, it took, what?
14
12?
weeks.
No, he had Thanksgiving week was good to him. He had 86 yards. He produced. Then last week he had, or 2 weeks ago, he had 112. And then last week he, blew up a little bit more with 131. But that's a pretty good streak and exactly what you want to see heading into the time of year we are. Zeke is basically it was weird. Like, I watched that Dallas game. I don't even know why he's on the field. I honestly feel bad. He's slow, he plots, like it's not a good look, and you do have a younger guy that seems ready to go.
I mean, like 4 weeks ago, there was, I guess everything in my mind is 4 weeks ago, but there was just like that report came out. Did he not travel with the team, or like because of whatever off the field issues
Something
were going
like
on
that.
there? Like, I don't know if he still thinks he's the guy and he's just not anymore. And there's weird tensions around the team. And they're talking about like bringing back Mike McCarthy next year. That's happening, by the way. Like, there's enough smoke around that. He's 100% going to be there next year. So take that for what it's worth. There's a lot of doubt around Jerry's sanity right now. But that being said, I mean, maybe we see them produce again next year. But yeah.
Oh, I don't mean to cut you off on that
No,
one. It was interesting to hear on the broadcast the people talking about the team's confidence in buying into McCarthy. I was like, what did this guy do in, to your point, 4 weeks to all of a sudden regain the locker room, right? Like, did that not confuse you a little?
Yeah, I don't know. They certainly haven't been winning a ton of games. I mean, let's look here over the past little while. I mean, they won 2, I guess, they won over the Commanders and then the Giants, if you care about that at all. And then, of course, they lost there at the end on that ridiculous, I don't know if it technically counts as a fumble, a muffed punt.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, so that was wild. But, I mean, you've got 2 wins over the Giants, a win over the Pittsburgh Steelers, and a win over the Commanders. So 3 in-division wins. And NFC North team. I don't think that was against Justin Fields. I'm sure. I don't know. I have to look. When did we start getting Russ Wilson at that point in time? Anyways,
that was a Fields game, and Fields actually played pretty well that game, if I remember correctly.
It was Fields. Yeah, 2017 for what it's worth. So yeah, you have a win over Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, whoever the heck started when they played them a couple weeks ago for the Giants and the Commanders. So, yeah, okay, great.
I know.
But, I guess, last year they did manage a fairly productive offense. They don't have Dak Prescott, which is probably why everybody who is a Cowboys fan who wants McCarthy back is screaming right now. But I don't have the belief, and I don't know what he does to push you over the top. Plus, the sun is in everybody's eyes, so doom and gloom continue for the Cowboys. Hunter Henry is the tight end that we love this week against Arizona. We have him ranked number 7 against an ECR of 13.
I mean, Hunter Henry, I'm telling you, like, I give the guy credit just for staying healthy. I feel like there was so much of a knock on him that he couldn't remain on the field and all that. And we've seen really 4 years now of Henry being a reliable target in New England. He's already eclipsed his highest yardage total in New England through 13 games. So, as a 30-year-old tight end, again, I'm not saying that's old, but it is good to see his connection with Mac Jones. Something that, has been one of the lone bright spots outside of Drake May. I said Mac Jones. Holy moly. That's awesome.
Yeah. We talked about him earlier. It's okay.
Yeah. The devil's still rearing his head, I guess, in that case. Yeah. But it to that point, it is good to see him being a reliable source for May. And I think that, if the Patriots are going to squeak out some games at the end of the season, they're going to have to use him more. They're going to have to use Pop Douglas more. Like, unfortunately, we have to go back to that structure because the run game hasn't been great. We know Jalen Polk has been terrible. Javon Baker has never seen the field. Like, what are we doing here? We got 2 guys that can move the chains. Kendrick Bourne has his moments here and there, but
he's not on the team anymore. They just cut him.
I thought it was Osborne.
Oh, you said Kendrick Bourne. I apologize. Yes, You're right. We know what we're talking about, fam. Yes, no, you're right. You're right.
It's just Drake May needs to continue to build chemistry with the people who can actually do something on the field. So I do like him here. I think it's a smart ranking. I mean, what do you expect from Henry moving forward?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, AVP, Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator there, I think has done exactly what he was brought in to do, and that's help Drake May succeed. And one of the ways that he has done that has certainly been through the utilization of Hunter Henry. And so I would obviously expect that to continue for what it's worth. 7 receptions last week, right? Yeah, no.
Yeah, he's had a good
2 weeks stretch ago. Yeah, prior to the bye there, with 9 targets, 75 yards. He hasn't scored a touchdown in a while. That's where, you kind of lose some of that upside just because that just doesn't exist necessarily with the Patriots, and as much as you would hope. They do play the Cardinals this week, so there might be some opportunity there, but that defense for the Cardinals has stepped up. So, I mean, I'd continue to start him through my fantasy playoffs and feel pretty good about it. I think he's vastly outperformed everybody else's expectations for the most part. Tight end is a pretty gross place to be anyways. And since Drake May has started in week, what was it? Was it against Houston? Yeah. He went 5 for 41. Sorry, 3 for 41 in the score, 8 for 92. 5 for 45, 7 for 56, 1 for 14, 6 for 63, 5 for 44, and 7 for 75. So obviously the touchdown upside isn't there at the moment, but just getting some points, 5 to, 8, honestly, to like 12, that feels pretty good from the tight end spot, if from a reliability perspective. So, all right. Let's move into our hate. We got to rush through these here. I told everybody we'd be quick today, and we are right up at the 47-minute mark. So Jameis Winston is on our hate list. He's ranked number 23 with an ECR of 15. Vegas does not think that the Lord delivers him from his pick sixes, projecting him for the highest interception total this week. And the offensive line probably going to struggle a little bit against Kansas City.
I mean, I would have a problem with anyone out there who says they aren't rooting for this guy. Now, you know what I mean? All fantasy football aside, how can you not love the energy he's brought over the last few weeks? Like, even if you hate the Cleveland Browns for everything they stand for as an organization, you have to be rooting for Winston. Like, he's just so fun.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of probably in like the neg category of that, which, I probably find myself in that space too often with a lot of things. But yeah, he strikes me as a little bit of a meme, I guess. So, but that's, it does at least make the Browns interesting and a better looking dumpster fire than they were. So,
absolutely.
At least it's a fun dumpster fire to look at.
Exactly.
So, so I'll enjoy watching that this week. And except if Kansas City wins, I'm so tired of that. I know everybody is. And I say that as a Patriots fan, and everybody just wants me to, stick it where the sun don't shine. But that's how I feel about it. Sam Laporta, we hate this guy. We got him ranked 12 with an ECR of 7. But let's be fair, a lot of people have probably not appreciated Sam Laporta this year. Are we telling people to bench Sam Laporta?
We're not telling people to bench Sam Laporta. I mean, we have him ranked 12th. The ECR has him ranked 7th. It's not bench him. It's just that Vegas seems to not think that even though Detroit's projected for 28.5 points, none of them are going to go through Laporta. And that's, you're getting into that crunch time of year. Again, there's so many weapons on this team that it's hard to predict who's going to get what. And unpredictability is the worst thing for fantasy football, and for betting. I mean, it's kind of one and the same, right? And I think there's still resentment's probably not the right word, but Laporta burnt a ton of people at the start of the year, and even through the middle of the year. You know, he was very highly drafted. He was very sought after, and it just didn't translate. I think the inconsistency and uncertainty is what's hurting him here, not the player.
Yeah, which of course last year his touchdown total was just outrageous. What did he have, 13 or something like that?
Something ridiculous.
Yeah, which is a lot, obviously, for a rookie tight end. And this year, now, of course, a couple weeks ago against Chicago, he did have 2 scores. Sure. He had a score against Houston 4 weeks ago as well, or 4 games ago, rather. But this last week, 5 for 54. I mean, that's great if we're talking Hunter Henry, like we were talking about.
Yes.
But, if you're talking Sam Laporta, like, you need more than 54 yards, 6 yards, albeit with the 2 touchdowns. 19 yards, like, bro, if you're getting sub 50 yards from Sam Laporta this week, it's tough. But yeah, look at what your other options you've got. You can check out our rankings as well. Let's see, who else do we have actually ranked above him? I'm just curious right at the moment with tight end. We have what do we got?
There's 11 people.
Yeah, I mean, Jonnu Smith, probably can't grab him anywhere, but like Cade Otton, Dalton Kincaid, like, that guy hasn't even been on the field recently. So for what it's worth, go ahead and check that out when you go to make your decisions. Let's check out the last guy that we don't like this week. Tucker Kraft, ranked 16 in our rankings through Vegas, ECR of 8.
And maybe this alludes to what we were talking about earlier of getting Jayden Reed more involved and kind of switching up how that offense is going to run. Maybe we don't see a ton of 12 personnel this week. There's so many things that could go into this. But for whatever they all are, he is significantly devalued when it comes to his projection this week. And, that typically doesn't bode well. Now, maybe there's some optimists out there that say, well, we're talking purely from a betting standpoint. Like, this is the time to pounce because all this news has come out and all this stuff about Green Bay and, doing this, doing that. And Kraft's just getting overlooked. He still loves reliable source. Yes, that's probably not going to change. But if the scheme is going to be altered a little, it's very tough. Again, we're going to go back to predictability, right? And I think Vegas is telling us that this game's going to be unpredictable.
All right. Do you have any final words of advice for people headed into their fantasy playoffs this week?
Try not to get angry. We've been recording this obviously for 52 minutes, and that's 52 minutes I haven't been watching Thursday Night Football. I'm very scared to look at a box score the second this is over, but I'm going to do it with a smile on my face. And I encourage you all to do the same throughout the weekend, because at the end of the day, it is fantasy football. It's supposed to be fun. We do this because it is fun. So have a good time with it. If you're already on fantasy football vacation because you're not in the playoffs, just enjoy football for what it is. And that's really why we come back each year. How about you?
No, I think that's great advice. I don't think you can get any better than that. I will say, though, if I take second place in my Dynasty League again, I'm in a couple, but like the one that I commissioned, I have taken second place like 3 years in a row now. If I do that again, and I have like the most points scored headed into the playoffs by like 200 points. I traded for AJ Brown right before the playoffs.
Oh, there you go.
And now he hasn't been super great, but like, I don't know. Nobody probably cares about this, but I will put a smile on my face. I will say congratulations to my opponent, and I will enjoy the rest of the
We don't have to do that. You don't have to congratulate anyone.
There you go. But I'll do my best to take your advice. Make sure to check out our Twitter at 32BeatWriters if you don't already follow us, and our website at 32beatwriters.com. Check out the new tools at tools.32beatwriters.com. That's also linked on our website as well. You can check out our rankings, our love-hate, our implied totals, the 2025 Dynasty Draft Tracker if your playoffs are already over or over shortly. As well, of course, as our most recent articles, we're releasing college content weekly now. For Matt Olson and all of the 32 Beat Writer staff, I'm Zach Hiduk, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Beat with Zach Hiduk and Matt Olson. For more expert analysis and exclusive insights from the best in the game, don't forget to subscribe and stay ahead of the competition. Until next time, keep turning that insider knowledge into fantasy football wins.